talking about today the peace treaty and the breaking news. Not sure if you caught this, but last week, I say a week and a half ago, Trump announced the peace treaty was signed. What does this mean? What did we talked about the beginning of the final seven, and one of the signs that we knew, or that would tell us that the final 7 years were beginning, was the peace treaty being signed. And we got news that the peace treaty was signed. They called it the Abrahamic treaty. So it was definitely caught my attention. What does this mean? So the peace treaty that we were looking for is the treaty between the Palestinians and the Israelites in Jerusalem, correct? In Israel. So the peace treaty that was signed, is this the beginning of the 7 years? The peace treaty that was signed was not the peace treaty between the Israel Jews and the Palestinians in the Israel nation. The peace treaty that was signed was between Israel, which is up here. This is Israel, and the United Arab Emirates, which is down here. There was a peace treaty signed with them. They want to make peace. They want to be able to trade. They want to be able to, economy-wise, and they want to be able to interact with each other as a nation. So the peace treaty that we're looking for is within the Israel nation, between the Palestinians and the Jews in that country. They have issues. Remember the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque are sitting on the Holy Mount, and they are fighting for the promised land within Israel. So the peace treaty that was signed, the breaking news, which is a step in the right direction, it's a good thing, but the Israels and the United Arab Emirates, the Arabs and Israel, that was a peace treaty that was signed. So it's not the peace treaty that's going to catapult us and launch us into the final 7 years, but it is a step in the right direction, because remember, these are all Muslims. These are all Muslims and Jews living in these areas, and the battle is between the promised land that God promised the Jewish people of Israel. And that's what we are looking for. So this peace treaty was a step in the right direction, because remember, Israel has peace with Egypt. They have peace with Jordan, Syria, all this. Then they got peace down here. Now the threat to all these nations is Iran. Remember the Sunni Muslims and the Sunnis and the Shiites. The Sunnis and the Shiites, so they're battling all throughout this country as far as the Muslim religion goes, but Israel is fighting for their promised land within Israel. So that is that's the distinguishment, because we're going to see a lot of these countries fall into peace because Iran is a threat to all these nations here. And with the U.S. on the side of Israel and all who makes peace, they have a fighting chance against Iran. And Iran knows that. So the peace treaty that was signed here and here, pretty soon you're going to start seeing this big, because they're going to start seeing the trades going on here and all the good things, the money, that's economy being strengthened, money being strengthened, which leads to armies being strengthened. This is all going to reflect onto these surrounding areas, and I believe it's going to cause them to want to sign a peace treaty with Israel, which would then allow Israel more power or more influence against the Muslims within Israel to sign that peace treaty. Because remember, the peace treaty is going to get signed. World War III is going to happen sometime before, after the peace treaty, and they want their Temple Mount to be built where they can worship in their holy place, and that's really the crux of this battle, is because they want their holy land. They want the holy land. They want the land that God promised, and they want to be able to worship in their temple. So think about it. They want to be able to worship in their temple. They've been fighting for centuries over, we want to worship in our temple. We want to have our holy place. What about us in America? Are we fighting to worship in our temple? Or are we fighting to sleep in on a Sunday morning? Are we fighting to make excuses about going to church during the week, or reaching out to our brothers, or having a Bible study, praying for people, getting strengthened in our faith? Israel is fighting for their holy place. They're fighting because they want to worship God in their holy place. So again, this peace treaty that was signed, not the peace treaty that is going to ignite the final 7 years, that's prophesied. It's not the peace treaty that is prophesied, but it is a step in the right direction, because we're going to see peace here, and pretty soon peace is going to fall through here and throughout, I don't know, maybe everywhere. But their main goal is to take back their holy land and be able to worship in their temple. So again, we need to understand what's going on with world events. We need to know what's happening with our world leaders, with our faith. What direction are we going to? What direction is God leading us to? What does He want us to do in these last days? The Bible talks about a great awakening, a great revival in the last days. So He also talks about, remember the verse, it says, our kids will dream dreams. Our kids will prophesy, or the old man will dream dreams. So all this is pointing again to the second coming, the final 7 years, and the return of Jesus Christ. And we just want to encourage you to be ready, get ready, because a great awakening is about to happen. It's already happening, but it's a great awakening. It's going to stir and stir and stir and stir, and we want to be part of that. So again, the peace treaty is going to launch us there. There's going to be a World War III happening, and we could see how that can happen like any moment now. With all the craziness going on in the world, there could easily break out a world war. And because the U.S. is trying to be controlled and overtaken, I believe, by the UN, which we talked about last week, and we went over the kind of details, what they're trying to do, the Great Reset, and trying to take over one world economy, one world government, one world money, one world health organization. They want it all to be part of one, controlled in one, with one group, for ultimately for control of the world. They want to be able to tell us how to live our lives like we see in these socialist, communist countries, where they can't decide what they're going to do from day to day. The government tells them what they can do, what they can eat, how many kids they have, how much time they get to go out of their house. And listen for those signs in the news. Listen in the media. They're talking about we need to be on lockdown. We need to be on lockdown. We need to have enforced rules and regulations. That's not America. That's not what we want as Americans, as free people in the U.S., as free people to be able to worship our God, just like Israel fighting for their right to worship God. We have that right, and let's keep that right. I pray that we keep that right here, that we can worship and keep praising and fellowshipping and just being aware that God is in control. So whatever's going on with this virus, with world events, again, like I said before, peace in your heart, peace that God is in control, and ultimately, no matter what happens, we can trust in God that He's in ultimate control. Why isn't it that we're hearing all these things about the virus, and the only cure is to get locked down in your house and get a vaccine? How come we're not told how to stay healthy, how to boost our immune system, how to get healthy, how to maintain our health? How come that's not being preached? All that's being preached is put a mask and get a vaccine when it comes out. I've never ever believed in medicine, vaccines as a way to stay healthy. God has provided us with everything that we need to stay healthy, from the foods that we eat, from the fellowship that we have, and from just our bodies being miraculously and wonderfully made in the image of God. Our bodies know how to stay healthy. Let's practice listening to our bodies. Your body will tell you when you're getting sick. Your body will tell you what you want to drink. If you're drinking a soda and you're still thirsty, guess what? Your body's not asking for a soda. It's asking for water. It needs to be hydrated. You're thirsty, you give your body a soda, and if it's still thirsty, that's not what it was asking for. If you ask me for a pen and I give you these headphones, what are you going to do? You're going to ask me for a pen again. So if your body's thirsty, you give it a soda and it's still thirsty, then you didn't give it what it was asking for. If your body's hungry and you give it a hamburger and a French fry, greasy fry, and it didn't satisfy you, guess what? Your body wasn't asking for that. Your body lives on fruits, vegetables, in everything that God created to sustain life and death. 90%, 80 to 90% of our diet should be fruits and vegetables. We were not created carnivores. Now, if you look at carnivores in the wild and you look at herbivores, how do you know that they're carnivores and herbivores? You know by their digestive system. You know by their features in their body. You know, carnivores, meat eaters, they have long fangs. They have what are these? Claws where they can grab and be able to eat that meat with their sharp teeth and their sharp claws. Herbivores don't have that. They don't have the sharp this. They don't have the sharp. And then dissecting them, you can see in their digestive system that their digestive system is meant for either herbs or meat. And guess what? Our digestive system leans more towards the herbivore side, the fruit and vegetable side. See, we don't have claws. We don't have fangs. I mean, some of us do, but you know what I mean? It's not meant to rip off chunks from a living animal. So let's listen to our bodies. Let's listen for the voice of God. and let's be aware of what's going on in the world today. So again, the peace treaty that was signed, it was between Israel and the UAE, United Arab Emirates, which is a good thing because it's going to cause these surrounding nations, or especially this big one here in between, to see the good economy, the good trading, buying power, all that's it's gonna show, and everybody's gonna want to start falling into peace with Israel. Look at Israel, this little nation here. UAE wants peace. They got peace with Jordan. They got peace with Egypt. I think, I'm not 100% sure about Syria, but the little nation, why is that? Because it's God's promised land. God, there's an anointing here. There's something special about this land. And it's because I believe it's God's chosen people and God's chosen land. The promised land resides in this little area. Because when you're anointed for something, guess what? There's something special about it. When God anoints you for something, you're not going to be, you probably won't be the best, naturally speaking or physically speaking, but you're going to be blessed. You're going to be the best spiritually because God anointed you for that. And we could see that all the time when people, with singers, there's people that could sing great, miraculously, voices incredible, and as an artist or as a performer, they're just, they're okay. I mean, it doesn't pull at your heart, doesn't touch your spirit. But then you get somebody that can sing okay, but because I believe they're anointed to do that, they touch your heart, your spirit, your soul. They can move you. They can reveal the voice of God within you. So there's a difference between anointed and just being good at something. And I believe this nation here is anointed. It's not big. If naturally speaking, if we were looking for an anointed nation out of all these, just saying, which one do you think's going to be the chosen one out of these? We would probably go for the biggest one. I'd probably say this one or this one. But no, God has has placed his hand here. His spirit is there, and some great things are going to happen there. It's going to be war. Israel, they're going to, just when it seems like they're going to get overthrown, taken out, God's going to come on their behalf in the clouds. King of kings and Lord of lords in reign. 1,000-year reign will begin. So I'm going to come out with a timeline of I'm calling it the prophetic timeline, and it's going to be a timeline of the events that will happen from the beginning to the end of the final 7 years. So look for that. Just pray that it blesses you, and just pray for Body Breakthru Ministries. Pray for Pastor Dan. Just pray for our leaders. Pray for the president. Pray for the vice president. Pray for the secretary of state. Pray for the treasurer. Pray for our leaders of this nation. I mean, things are getting crazy. It's getting out of control, but remember, God is in control. When he comes in his 1,000-year reign, it's going to be his reign. You say, man, you didn't cut it. Man's dominion here on earth will end. God's dominion will resume, and we will live with him in victory. So God bless you. Hope this was encouraging. Questions, comments, put it in the comments. And again, look up, because why? Because our redemption draweth nigh.